Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Fours podcast, a podcast from Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media missions. I always went missions.
Well, this is the last mission.
It is our ANDOR final transmission. Series finale, BBY 1, episodes 10, 11, 12, Make It Stop. Who else knows? Jedha, Kyber, Erso. Lots to talk about. But before we get started, we would like to welcome back to the Triad Ellie from Daughters of Ferrix. Welcome back. Nice to meet you because I didn't get to talk to you last time. So welcome to the Triad.
Welcome once again.
Thank you for having me. I'm so very glad to be here. I'm so very glad this show is over, and I'm glad I get to talk about it with friends.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have you here again. It was such a fun time talking with you about Acolyte all those years ago. It seems like decades since Acolyte was thankfully canceled by our overlords over at Disney, and now we have this woke abomination called ANDOR. I'm so excited to tear it down with you today. Thank you.
Truly an abomination.
It was.
Yeah.
I remember some karaoke in Japan where it's just like, this is garbage. Tony Gilroy, what are you doing?
Well. What is he doing?
I
would like to know. What is his location?
Thanks.
I have words. I have words for the man.
And I want to hear all about them, because back a couple of weeks ago, Andor season 2 was just, an upcoming thing that everyone is very excited. It's over. It feels like the end of an era.
It does.
It feels really like the end of democracy in many ways. It's like, well, it was a good run. It was a good run. It was good while it lasted. How do you feel about the end, Ellie? How does it feel to be at the finish line?
Oh, the finish line of democracy? Pretty bad, honestly.
Andor. This is not a political show.
Okay,
Star Wars isn't political.
Hard to think of. Yeah,
of
hard
course.
right, Andor. No, I am sad. I am relieved. But I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I do think Andor is a show that would have benefited from being a longer show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like it is like being cut off before it needs to. And so I'm very much feeling, especially over the last couple of days, like what might have been, and I think it's a real shame that this is the end of the line, as much as I have kind of had my fill of season 2, I think, at this point.
Now that it's over, though, do you feel satisfied with it just being a 4-week, engagement? We get our 3 episodes a week, and now we're done. Or now you look back and be like, damn. I mean, yeah, it made sense, but maybe we should have stuck a little longer with it, because it feels like the zeitgeist on it kind of just is gone suddenly.
3 episodes a week is too many. Maybe I'm just saying that as someone who talks about them semi-professionally, but my girlfriend doesn't talk about them semi-professionally, and every time that we tried to watch them the night they came out, they would fall asleep halfway through, because of course they would. For whatever reason they put it out this way, I wish I knew why. I don't think, if the creators made those sort of calls, I don't think that they would have made that choice, because it is too much television.
Yeah. Nani, how about you? Because I know for us especially for you, right? Because of the time difference, it's a brutal undertaking almost to come out of work, then wait till God knows, 8:30 for you at night, and to be spending almost spending 2 hours with it to then try the rest to go to work. So was this a worthwhile exercise? And then record with me, waste time here the next day talking about it.
Yeah. Honestly, it was rough. Selfishly for us as creators, it adds to it, but we've talked about, semi-professionally, like Ellie said. But we've talked about before, one of the best things about Star Wars is watching it with other people, watching other people's reactions and everything. And I've always digested my Star Wars, with my brother, with you, or Mo, or Josbando. And Josbando has not been able to keep up. It's like what was happening with Ellie. We tried to watch, a few times, and it's like, I have to watch it because I have to talk about it. he doesn't have to watch it because he doesn't need to talk about it. It's like, let's just, at this point, just wait to the end, binge it, and then watch Rogue One because I can't keep up with it. So it's not the same watching it and be like, what do you think? Oh, you're not there. You're asleep. Okay. It's okay. I'll figure it out. So yeah, so I think it also, especially because a lot of the episodes were just so emotionally impactful that I feel like sometimes you really need to sit with it and absorb before you're skipping to the next one. And especially the past arc and this one, that it's just like there's so many emotions coming at you, and then you're just like, next. And it's one of the issues, that happens with binging, that by the time you get to the end, you forget kind of how you got there to begin with. So even though it kind of makes sense because, every arc, it's kind of self-contained and it's a different BBY and it moves it forward, it got rushed. It was so fast. And then considering how much we loved season 1 and how much we were expecting this one, and the fact that we knew that this was going to be the series finale and that's it, and it builds into Rogue One, and how much we've loved it, I feel like we should have had more time with it. That's my opinion. I don't know. What do you think, Goose?
Hey, I'm a selfish brat, and I've said it since the beginning of our coverage. I want to spend more time with Andor, not less. And Andor is the only show of the Lucasfilm, live action Disney Plus series that is, I think, the perfect length for a streaming show. With 12 episodes, I think that's like that sweet spot of like not too many, but also not too few. Like Mandalorian, which is like 8 episodes. Wham bam thing. And you're done. Which is, I think, one of the things that hurt The Acolyte. Just having 8 episodes is like not enough. To get your story done. And I think 12 was just like that sweet spot of just like getting.
Well, and the episodes themselves, so you get like 40 something to 50 minutes, so they're good. But then when you get 3 in a row, it's just like, ugh.
Some would even call it prestige television. I don't know who those people are, but that's what it's called in some circles. So the fact that for season 1 we got to enjoy it for such a beautiful amount of time, because I think I think like season 1 it was the Rido was flowing, and we were huffing it and enjoying all those weeks of Andor and just really going in depth for everything and really having wonderful conversations in fandom, and all of a sudden
now it's done.
Over. All of a sudden it's done. It's done. It was one big huff of Rido and we're done. We couldn't let it run wild. It just we let it in, but we didn't run wild with it, unfortunately. Oh, I mean, that's not an indictment on the quality of the show. We'll get to that now.
It's still amazing. Yeah.
I think it's amazing. I loved it, and like now I think let's just talk about the arc itself. I feel blessed to finally be able to talk about it, because it's been weeks being like listening to everyone talk about the arcs and me being like, oh, I just want to talk about the last one.
I can't really opine.
Because this is the one that I really want to talk about, because this is my favorite arc of the 4, and it's just solely based on the strength of that first episode, because Clea came in.
Clea.
A swinging, and she's the MVP of Andor period, season 1 and season 2, especially post BBY 1 with season 2. But yeah, like, not to say that the last arc was inferior in any way to this one, but I like smaller stories like this where it affects like characters in a very intimate way, and like see what they're going through in a small way, which is why I think that I still prefer season 1 to season 2, because you're very intimately seeing what these big things make to a small group of people, and that is obviously lost when you're in a giant massacre in a whole planet. Which is not to say that it was bad, but I personally am drawn to the smaller stories. So that's why, like, this last arc, I think, was just a masterclass of being able to tell as much story as possible in as few episodes as are available to the story. So yeah, I love that. I know that the internet was going a little spicy with some of the creative choices that the arc made, especially for the 3rd episode. But we'll get to that. Ellie, what about you? I've been trying to avoid your podcast because I've been
No,
seeing some
I try to
spicy
avoid my
things come.
podcast too.
No. Let me preface that. I want to come in fresh. I want to be virginal to your opinions here. I know we've
I try to
texted.
come in virginal too.
Yeah, they say it's better. We've been texting a little back and forth about it, but like on the whole, I want pun intended maybe. I want to see your thoughts on it and not come with the baggage of like knowing them beforehand by listening to your stuff. So now I just want it unfiltered. What do you think of this arc? Give it to us straight.
I think it was okay. I think it did.
Well done, well done.
I think it did a lot of things really well. I really like the choice to focus so much on Clea. I really like the kind of simultaneous unraveling of the Axis network, or what was the Axis network, what
Right.
remains of the Axis
Mhm.
network, and like the unraveling of the ISB itself. I feel like there are ways in which this arc kind of suffered from having to be the finale, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, and that, there are a lot of scenes that I think are really, really moody and really tender and really wonderful, and there are also things that I don't think, for a show that is so methodical with its build up, I think there are things that in these episodes, uh, that were not built up to,
Mhm.
and not in the like cheeky, like tidy storytelling. Oh, we're establishing this now, even though we haven't. Andor does that, and I don't think it does it here. I think there are a lot of things that it just kind of has to look down the camera and tell you, the audience, because they didn't have time to set it up sooner. And I think that some of the like beats land worse because of it.
I
I really
want to
like
get it.
Clea though.
Yeah, I want to get into more of that, but before we go into that, Nani, what's your review of this
Yeah.
arc?
Yeah. So no, I actually kind of want to ask Ellie. So you think the show would have been better if they gave like another arc in between before the finale, so the finale makes like lands better for you?
Potentially.
Yeah.
I think the finale they decided that it had to be immediately before Rogue One, and I think that
Yeah.
probably meant that it didn't have time to breathe. It didn't have time to
Yeah.
it had to essentially be like, okay, we're at Rogue One now. And
Mhm.
instead of, frankly, there's a lot of stuff, particularly with the Alliance, the
Mhm.
Alliance to Restore the Republic, the institution itself, that is
Mhm.
not set up basically at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
Luthen's relationship to it, not vague relationship, but like specific.
Yeah.
Here's the shape of this thing. Here's
Mhm.
why this is an issue. Here's because I have reasons to dislike Luthen. Cassian has
Mhm.
reasons to dislike
Mhm.
Luthen, but those are very different than what the
Yeah.
Alliance as an institution. And so to kind of say, here is this big, like, pivotal relationship. It is
Mhm.
Luthen's relationship to the Alliance that
Mhm.
literally has not been set up because the Alliance only now exists in this
Mhm.
episode. If there had been anything with the Alliance and Bale or Phoenix
Mhm.
Squadron
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
Masasi Group or whatever, maybe even as back as Arc 2, do one
Yeah.
less episode with the Gorman stuff
Mhm.
Mhm.
and do some setup for this. I think a lot of these emotional payoffs, as it gets later on in the arc, because I think
Mhm.
it really earns it in like episode 10, but later on, I
Yeah.
think that would have been a lot tighter. And as it stands, it's kind of, some of that stuff is free floating in a way that I don't think serves the way this show works.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, and I agree. I was a little bit like, before I get into, because I'm enjoying this conversation. I was a little bit jarred that the transition from like Mon Mothma being like super fashionable and fantastic and all these things, and then suddenly being the version that we know
Mhm.
from, A New Hope and everything. It was kind of like, when did that transition happen? Like, what went into her suddenly deciding that this is, her look, I guess. And then we get that one random scene of Perrin, like, so there was a lot of buildup to Mon Mothma and her relationship with her daughter, her relationship with Perrin, that, we started to see that maybe he's not as much of an asshole as we thought. And then, we don't really get a payoff as to, you know, where that was going. But in general, I thought coming from the previous arc, which was just so in your face, I thought it was going to be really hard for them to do a finale, especially because we knew. I mean, the plan was for them to make it all the way up to Andor, up to Rogue One. So we knew that was happening, for better or for worse. That was the plan from the beginning. So I thought it was really going to be hard after, the Gorman massacre to keep us, like emotionally attached to these characters in this final arc. So I thought that was really great. And especially with the Make It Stop episode, the first one, with the relationship of Clea and Luthen, and really showing, like, even though he eventually became so twisted that he didn't know wrong from right, and, for better or worse, he was pivotal in creating the rebellion, but how he was such an important person to Clea, and how their relationship, forged her into the person that she is. I thought that was really, really well done. I mean, Clea for the win. Clea has been, masterfully done, but especially that episode. And after, she loses him and she breaks, like, she's been so consistent throughout. And then after she loses Luthen, like, to watch somebody who is so self-contained and analytical and on point for everything, just being like, I just need to get the message forward and I'm done, because I can't really do this without, my father at this point. So I think there was a lot of really emotional, awesome things. But yeah, towards the end, I feel like some of the scenes were just like kind of there to make you feel like, oh, okay, this makes sense that this is how Andor begins. And, we're saying goodbye to the characters that we hadn't met yet, and, like, give you a little snapshot after we built them up so much. So in some ways, like, as I'm having this conversation, because I haven't had a time to sit with it because I just watched them today, I'm feeling like, yeah, I really love them as I watch them, but there's some things that don't land as well as they could have. Maybe
it's interesting. It's interesting to hear, because I'm thinking about it in two perspectives, right? I was lucky, right, to watch the season a couple weeks ago. So
Special
this
boy.
I'm not very I mean, according to my mom, I am very special.
I think you're
but
very special, Gus.
thank you. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'll take it as a compliment. So I was able to see it beforehand. So I've been, kind of remembering the arc. So yesterday I was rewatching it. So I think that kind of reframes a little bit how I'm thinking about it. But also, as both of you are talking about your experience with it, I'm also wondering how much of how we're perceiving, right, how the show is ending is based on us being Star Wars fans, right, and kind of knowing, as the social media says, the lore, and caring, right, about characterizations of certain characters, or how things lead into other things, or Saw Gerrera and Rebels, or blah 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 blah, like all these
and Mon
things
and
that,
Rebels and the speech and all
like
the
all these things that we care about. And I wonder if there's a way to kind of do a severance where I can unplug, do an any version of myself that doesn't
Oh
know
my
anything
God.
about Star Wars, and just watch Andor without that baggage, and see how I feel about it, without caring about all this noise around it. And because I think that would be interesting. I think that's one of the cool things of having, watching it with my partner, because she gives no flying criffs, to use some Star Wars vernacular, about the lore or anything. And it's very valuable to see that input, and like how things that I'm just like, I don't think that worked, and then she's like, what do you mean, that was the best part of the show? So
yeah.
it's
I mean,
funny.
Even I haven't watched Rogue One in a few years, and as soon as it was over, it just really made me want to watch it again.
Yeah.
And I remember as I was watching some of the seasons, I'd be like, wait, how did this go in the movie? Like, how, so I think for people who haven't watched Rogue One, I think this is like the perfect setup to watch it. And for us, I think it'll give us great perspective into going into it. And obviously, we are Star Wars nerds and we are super judgmental, but all in all, I thought,
understatement.
I mean, most of the episodes this season had me crying. So, I mean, something gets me to cry. I'm amazed, so
Yeah, but there is something to be said that I want to like talk a little bit more with all of you. But something that you
Mhm.
brought up specifically, Ellie, was the characterization, right, of the Rebel Alliance, and I think I
Mm.
definitely agree on that point specifically because I do remember rewatching those scenes, especially when Cassian comes back from Coruscant and he brings
Yeah.
back Clea and he has the message and it's Jedha, Gorman and Death Star, like all these things.
Mhm.
And then we get all our wonderful, because what is Star Wars if not a revolving door of cameos, and thanks Tony Gilroy for giving in to the fandom and putting Admiral Raddus and all these people that all these glub shitos that no one cares about, and kind of putting them there as a foil to Cassian, which in many ways is like, I get it, right? We're leading into Rogue One, so we have to bring kind of that power structure of the alliance that we see there, so that we can
Mhm.
start seeing like how it has evolved from bumbling idiots in the forest to bumbling idiots in a not a courtroom, in a conference room, right? It's just like, but they're still bumbling idiots, right? And I think that's a kind of a cool poetic thing, right? That Tony kind of did. It's just like, yeah, just because you're changing the setting and now you're structured doesn't mean that you still don't have a ridiculous infighting amongst the group that should still be agreeing because you agree on 80% of everything. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that, specifically with Bale, I remember being like, why are these characters this way? Like, why? Like, this is not the Bale from the last three episodes. And
Yeah.
like, why are they just, why? Right? Like, shouldn't they be worshiping at Mon's feet after her defection from Coruscant like 2 minutes ago? And like, everyone knows that Cassian rescued her. So, like, why is everyone a jerk right now? And why is Mon
Yeah.
so quiet? So, I do agree with that there's definitely kind
Kind of
of
a disconnect. Yeah.
yeah, a beat
Mhm.
is missing from
Yeah.
where we left everything in Alliance Ascendant to all of a sudden being middle management, McDonald's Alliance, So elaborate on that as our political expert here. How do you justify that? Tell us how Tony went wrong here and how he's showing us how rebel alliances are built.
Yeah, expert. Yeah, no.
Mhm.
So I think you are right that part of what is going on in this arc is it is echoing a little bit of the kind of infighting stuff that we saw exemplified by the brave heroes, the brave, pathetic heroes of the Maya Pay Brigade, back in arc 1 of season 2. I think it is really reasonable to draw that connection because I think there is something here. And I really think if that's what they were going for, which almost certainly, right, they should have been more
Mhm.
explicit about that parallel. There should have been actual, like, ideological reasons. I should be able to, maybe after a couple of rewatches, but I should be able to write down what either the actual difference is, like, you know, the point is that they're silly and no one knows what they are, which I don't think is the point. Or I should be able to
Mhm.
know where that what that divide is so that I can feel the stakes just from like a sheer like filmmaking
Mhm.
perspective, right? The
Mhm.
way Andor is always so interested in setting up those stakes. I should be able to say, okay, here is Luthen's issues because again, I know Cassian's issues with Luthen. I know
Right.
Vel's issue with Luthen,
Mhm.
and those are really
Yeah.
reasonable.
Mhm.
But what are the operational differences? What is Luthen's actual what is the structural relationship here? Luthen helped build the alliance. I mean, he definitely helped like rebel cells get started, but
Mhm, mhm,
was it that he funded cells that became the alliance? Show me those cells. Show me
mhm,
them becoming the alliance. Like I I also think that's something they could have done with the Maya Pay Brigade. You have people already on
Yeah.
Yavin, rope them into the Yavin stuff so you have
Yeah.
more of that setup. Say that these are people who have. Granted, I know those guys suck, but like I, I think that is genuinely if they want this thing to matter more, do the
Mhm.
Andor thing, set it up
mhm,
back
mhm,
here, and I don't think I think one of the points is that those ideological differences don't matter more than the sheer will to fight the empire, right? That is the that is essentially what Bale arrives at the very, very end
Right.
of the arc, where you have Bale coming into Cassian's home. These two men who do not agree, who do not get along. I wish I
Yeah.
understood more of why, but these
Right.
two men who don't. And these are both men that will be dead in a matter of days, both of them.
Right.
And it's essentially Cassian's like, why are you sending me on this mission? Why are you letting me keep doing this stuff when I have disobeyed orders, when I have endangered the Alliance or whatever, when we don't agree? And Bale is like, the point is to fight the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not, I'm going to let you fight the Empire. Go, fight the Empire. That's the point. That is more important. And I think that could have been emphasized more, because I agree. I think that is the correct takeaway. I think Bale is right.
Yeah.
To want to go out swinging, and
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I wish it had rested a little
But
bit
that
more
was
in the differences.
that was the weird thing about it, though. That Bale was the Bale that we've kind of expect, but the Bale that was in the boardroom is just like, who's this corporate Bale Organa here that's just being a jerk to Cassian and everything? So I'm just like, so it was kind of jarring first to see that
Well,
one,
and
also and to jump into
especially
the other one.
and especially after, you know, he knows that his team was the corrupt one, and they almost got, like, his team almost got
Only
Mon
one third.
Mothma.
Only one third.
Whatever.
Well,
And that it was after all doubt was cast upon Luthen that it was his team and his relationship with Cassian that got Mon Mothma out, and the fact that Cassian has to point it out. Oh, right. I'm the one that got her out, when it just happened last year, you know? So that was a little bit jarring. And like you were saying, Ellie, I mean, if I'm going to fight the Empire, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go down swinging. That is the Bale that we were expecting. So the courtroom version, and then all these other, like, senators, they're just, I don't know. I guess it goes to the disenfranchisement that Cassian had going into Rogue One, but then that wasn't, like, completely established, because Rogue One starts that day, you know, and you can see that he's not like this dick that we get at the beginning of Rogue One, who, like, doesn't believe in anything and has lost all faith, and, you know, all the things. So I think they failed a little bit in establishing that. I thought he was going to be a lot more bitter this arc after Bix leaves him, and that's why we were going to get that, like, more bitter version of him in Rogue One, who gains his hope by, you know, his relationship with Jyn. But I don't know. I think we left him in a really I don't know.
I think you have to rewatch. You have to rewatch Rogue One, because
I have to rewatch Rogue One.
Yeah. Because I think it reframes it. It reframes it.
It reframes it.
Because I did that once I finished this arc. I was like, okay, let's go.
Let's watch it.
Yeah. And once
I haven't had a chance. I haven't had time.
It is.
It reframes it. Okay.
It reframes it. It's kind of soul crushing. I agree.
Soul crushing.
But yeah, I think, again, and, you know, I don't want to beleaguer the point, right? Because there's so many other things to talk about. But it's the, you know, and we said it. I don't know if it was like the last episode or one before. I'm not entirely convinced that the spin story that Tony Gilroy's telling us, that it was his idea to do it this way, and instead of the 5-year season thing. I think that's him playing nice with the corporate overlords. But I do think that, you know, we don't have to do 5. Fine, let's split the difference. Maybe 2 more seasons. Then you can split these arcs up into something wider, so that we can fill some of those gaps. Because I think the time jumps are kind of clever, to just be taking a moment in time, and like how moments are, you know, because a moment defines a thing and not the space in between. You know, there's silence between in the notes of everything. So we're focusing on the notes, and I think that makes sense. But there's definitely needs to be, or needed to be, a little bit more, you know. But it's one thing. It's one thing that was interesting. I was watching an interview today where Denise Goff is talking about the difference between the Empire and the Rebels, especially with this arc. And she describes is that the Rebels are a tribe, the Rebel Alliance is a tribe, and the Empire is a gang. And when faced with adversity, the Rebels, you know, because they're a tribe, they come together as a community. And the Empire is a gang, and when there's adversity, they just cast each other out or cannibalize each other. It's for personal gain, and I think that's very exemplified, right, with that Bale scene that we've all been kind of talking about right now, about going down swinging to take down the Empire. But then it's counterpointed perfectly by that mirror scene of Krennic and Dedra. And I think that that was a very powerful scene to me when I was watching it. We are going out of order, right? We are talking about episode 2 before episode 1, but whatever. Here we are, and here's how we're doing it. But that was so powerful. I think all the acting decisions that Krennic, that Ben Mendelsohn did, and how he was interviewing Dedra during that, and kind of shows the cannibalization, right, of fascism. About, like, it doesn't matter how good you were; it only matter about the failure that you have now, and how we are gonna atone for it, or how you're gonna atone for it, so that we can get to the bottom line executed. But there was that perfect summation of everything, where it's just reduced to just one finger on top of Dedra's head, which was bone chilling, at least to me when I was watching it. So I want to kind of talk about the gang that is the Empire. We were talking a lot about the tribe of the Rebel Alliance, so let's talk about the Empire a little bit, and Dedra's downfall and eventual condemnation to hell in the shape of Narkina 5. Ellie, what did you think of that interrogation scene from Ben Mendelsohn as Director Krennic?
I mean, chilling is the right word. The interrogation itself opens up with, I mean, there's no oversight. The Krennic turns off the cameras. No one else is here. This is just Krennic and Dedra. And when Krennic comes into the room, there's this fantastic shot that frames Dedra behind him. Sorry, him behind Dedra, forgive me.
You can't see his face,
yeah. It is positioned in such a way, the camera's positioned in such a way that you cannot see Krennic's eyes. Which, this is a guy we know. I know it. I know Krennic Steele, but it kind of, because I know him, it turns him into this almost predatory threat for Dedra, and kind of puts you in Dedra's shoes, where she's just hearing him. And for me, I think one of the biggest takeaways from the Dedra stuff in this season, arc,
where everyone
season,
understood,
episode, arc,
the parlance.
show.
It's been a long 4 weeks.
This arc, it's been a long 4 hours, Goose. In this arc, Dedra's. To me, the thing I keep coming back to is the fact, I think so at least, if going after Luthen the way she did, if that had worked, none of this would be happening to her. The only difference is that it failed. When Partagaz cancels the supervisor meeting because of what Dedra pulls, and right when they learn about Lonnie's death, when Partagaz cancels that meeting, he says to Supervisor Hirt, Dedra's been basically warned about pushing these boundaries before. And okay, sure, but she's also been commended for it. Dedra is, in many ways, as far as the ISB is concerned, at least, as far as this job is concerned, Dedra is a maverick. She's a scavenger. She goes out of her way to do this stuff. Sometimes she bends it a little. Sometimes she goes beyond her purview. And that is not a problem when it works, because it is not about the rules as written. It is about how much you are serving the interests of this institution, and it is about not making a mess. And Krennic breaks and bends plenty of rules to his own ends. It just so happens that his ends align with the people above him, right up until they don't. Because there is this point when either you push too much or you are wrong for this cookie cutter system. If you want to, if you are an Imperial subject and you're on the bottom, you have to follow the rules exactly. The further up you get the chain, the more and more you are expected to push beyond them, to be to be cruel, to be renegade, to do things that are illegal, right? This is all part of the structure. This is working by design. This is how Palpatine designed this stuff. There's a reason the Imperial structure is so complex, is so genuinely like impossible to understand fully from the outside. No one in it understands either. And it is so that who everybody is accountable to is really murky. And that both implicates people and it also frees people up to do whatever they can to make their superior happy, the guy above them happy, the guy above him happy, and the emperor happy. Everyone is doing that at every level. It is this system of crime and cruelty.
Which makes everyone complicit so there no one's innocent.
Which keeps the very few people that might defect in it even longer. And Dedra did mess it up. Dedra did break the law. She should go to prison for other reasons, but But if she had caught Axis alive, then Hirt would be mad at her. Partagaz would say, "Tut tut, Dedra, good job," and they would move right on. And she would eventually work her way up the chain. And the only difference is that she didn't fail upwards this time.
Nani, what about you? What was your reaction to like all these this power struggle with Krennic and Dedra?
I mean, Dedra to me has always been such an interesting character, especially the way she's so masterfully well acted. But building off what Ellie was saying, I mean, her out of the box thinking was the whole reason that Krennic got her involved with the Gorman operative. I mean, it was the fact that she could see the extra, effectiveness of cruelty of you need an act of rebellion to do the wrong thing constantly. Your smear campaign is not enough. I mean, it is the whole reason she was brought on. The fact that she, friends orders things differently. I was honestly surprised because I thought she was gonna get the fallout from Gorman. Like I thought it was gonna be more of a, after Mothma's speech and the fact that Gorman wasn't what the Empire was saying that it was an actual massacre. I thought Dedra was gonna be blamed for that, and I thought we were gonna see more fallout. So I was surprised that we see her like still in power at the beginning of this arc. And it's so sad because it is. If she would have been able to take Luthen alive, and it was all part of her hubris because she was so obsessed with catching Luthen, which was Cyril's fall too. He was so obsessed with catching Cassian that he just lost all sense of where he was, attacked him blindly, got shot in the head. Dedra was obsessed from the beginning with catching Luthen, and she had the hubris to believe that after chasing this man who has a master spy network, that she was gonna arrest him by herself. That she could look away and he was just gonna be standing there saying, I'm done, as he had an actual knife in his hands, So she definitely underestimated, or just como decimos nosotros en español, que contar los lirios muy temprano, like calling it the win before it actually happens. Like I found him, I win, and forgetting that.
That's what happens when you're in the Empire. You have to be dramatic, right? You can't just be straightforward about anything you're doing. Everything has to be ceremonial and grandiose. It's just like you can't just come in and put cuffs on the man. You have to play these word games with him, which I thought was so, credit where credit's due. Masterfully written scene.
Oh yeah,
masterfully acted.
Is everything in here real?
Denise Goff and Stellan Skarsgård ate that scene up, especially with those little jabs that then like Luthen's giving her, saying like when she asks him like, "Is there anything of questionable provenance?" And then Luthen's just like, "Only two things here are of questionable provenance," or something.
The wig,
something to that effect. I'm just like, "Oh, I see what you're doing there. It's so good. It's so good." But yeah, it's a fascinating journey for Dedra because I remember season 1 when we were all talking about her character and like where she's going. Everyone kind of being on her team, right? Because everyone's just like, oh well, she's just this woman who's trying to get ahead and fighting through all the misogyny of the empire, trying to just prove herself in this. So in many ways, people were rooting for her because there was
Even
like
though
this
she's kind of a
system.
monster.
Well, exactly, but you're not seeing that monster in her because you just see her
Yeah.
fighting the monster above her. And then now, like in this whole journey, we just see how it's doesn't matter if you're fighting, advocating for yourself within a monstrous system. If you're a monster yourself, like you're just you're just like leopards eating each other's faces. So it's funny then to then learn that she was raised in a kinder block and it's kind of the product of the empire. And she comes from a system from the empire, but then she's discarded by the empire into the waste bin of a
Well, and especially because
imperial
she did
prison.
not see it coming at all. She thought she won. It's like, why are you coming to question me if I did what I said I was going to do? I said I was going to catch Axis. I caught him. I kept him alive. We can still interrogate him. She did not see that interrogation from Krennic coming at all, which I think is why it's so shocking. She's like, wait, and you're saying I'm a rebel? It was like the shock on her face. Like, I've been the most loyal, the most hardworking. I've always tried to give results, and you're actually accusing me of being the person that I've been chasing my entire life. It was insane, and you can see that with Krennic, it's all coming from fear
Mhm.
because he knows he's been missing his deadlines.
Notoriously
And
so.
Just like me
notoriously
for
so.
real.
If you read Catalyst by James Lucene.
Yeah. And now, after, all of these years of secrecy, this one person that he did not believe was, in on the loop, figured everything out and left herself open to be hacked by the enemy. So it's like levels of losing control happening within one conversation that you can just see. She's horrified because she always thought she was doing it for the right reasons, and then being accused of these things that you were doing for the right reasons, you screwed us by doing that. So I don't know. It was just so much happening in one conversation.
I think what Krennic says, he starts the conversation in this interrogation room. He starts the conversation with Dedra, essentially saying the only explanation is that you are a spy. I don't think he explicitly believes that. I think he thinks it could very well be incompetence. But he, at the very least, he changes his tune enough to say that if Dedra is not a rebel spy, she has missed her calling. And I think I think from that we can kind of take an invitation to look back at the scene between her and Luthen in Luthen's shop, where, however we want to slice it, these two people are in some ways equals. They are peers in their, in these rival systems.
Two sides of the same coin.
In many ways. And you kind of have this recurrent thing in the arc where, if it were not for Luthen, the Alliance would not be what it was. If it weren't for Luthen, they wouldn't know about the Death Star in the way that they do. They might not know about the Death Star at all, since Tivik is the one that tells them about Bodhi. Like, they probably wouldn't know until much too late, at the very least for Alderaan. And, which, I mean, I know they didn't save Alderaan, but they knew about the Death Star when Alderaan was exploded, and that's pretty huge at the very least. That is all because of Luthen. That is because of Luthen's work. Luthen is this person who is deeply flawed and makes calls that are not necessarily the wrong answer, but not the only answer, and sees them as if they are necessarily. He shuts people out of his decision-making process, sometimes when he doesn't need to. He lies.
Yeah.
He screws people over, but he also does take care of people, and he also is extremely often right.
Yeah.
Luthen consistently understands the assignment. He gets how this works. They won the war because of many people, including him. And Dedra is a person who understands the Axis network. She understands Axis. She knows this stuff better than anybody. She knows how to think like a rebel. And what she gets from that is an amount of knowledge where at the end of that interrogation scene with Krennic, she's like, okay, we have to fucking get his assistant. And then Krennic goes and basically tells people, okay, we have to go get the assistant. He's in a meeting with Hirt and Partagaz and says, this girl, find her. And then Hirt comes to Dedra and is like, I don't know how to find this lady. And Dedra tells him exactly how. Dedra knows. If Dedra had been on finding Clea, I believe that she would have found Clea before Cassian. I believe they would have got her.
Yeah, 100%.
But the difference is how their respective institutions, well, the difference is like that one of them's not a fucking fascist, but the difference is in how their institutions treat them, right? Luthen is disenfranchised, but he's not imprisoned. This information is suspect, but it is not thrown out. Because there is this extra layer of connection and trust between people like Cassian and Draven, Cassian and Mon. They have that, and that's not necessarily always enough, right? Maybe they should trust Luthen more. But at the very, very least, there was this chance for Mon to go, I think this guy's onto something. There was this chance for Draven to stick up for Cassian. And no one can or does stick up for Dedra, even though Dedra was correct. Even though Dedra found Axis, Dedra would have found Clea. She is disposed of. And her relative, shall we say, disregard for the rules in that particular way is a liability. And because it risks the people at the top. And I think Dedra and Luthen are both people who are so committed to their relative causes. You know, whether or not Dedra is like a true believer in the Imperial Project, she's a true believer in the ISB. That's all she needs to be. And I think there are people who would do anything towards that end. And in the Alliance, that sort of dedication is what it takes. And in the ISB, that sort of dedication is what it takes up until you could be a problem for management.
But I mean, that's the corporate structure and fascist structures. It's just like you're useful to or not.
Without Dedra, they wouldn't have known that the rebels were organized in any recognizable way. It was her, you know, not just like Axis per se, but the rebellion as a whole. It was her that started saying, hey, these people are actually organized. These are not isolated events happening. So it was her from the beginning, and her thinking that got them as far as they got. So, yeah. So when you see her, you know, in Narkina 5, to me, it was so heartbreaking. I mean, I don't have any specific love for her, you know, as a character, aside from the fact that she is like so well acted, and you can see her motivations and everything behind it. But to just first, you kind of get a glimpse of the jumper, you know, and then you can actually tell, yeah, she, after everything she did, she's stuck in Narkina 5. It was hard to watch, but
yeah. Before we move on to like some of the other characters, let's wrap up with Dedra. Are we satisfied with her ending? Like when we see her in her cell in Narkina. Well, maybe it's Narkina 2 because I saw a typo in one of the Star Wars.com articles. So I don't know if it's a typo or if that's where she actually is, but whatever. Let's
Oh,
just stick with
surely.
Narkina 5.
I mean,
How did we feel about it?
why would she be in exactly the same location as Cassian, right?
Fair.
They're a bunch
There
of
could be
different.
20
Because it's poetry,
Narkinas.
it rhymes.
I mean, at the very least, those facilities on Narkina, we see like 2 or
Yeah.
3 of them in
Mhm.
that first introduction. So
And let's go with it. Let's go with Narkina 2. Let's be rebels.
I bet it's deliberate.
We're all rebels, aren't we? Let's rebel. How did we feel about Dedra's being in Narkina 2? Ellie, was that a fitting end for her character, or were you on the redemption camp like a lot of people?
Oh, absolutely not. No, she's a bastard and she deserves worse. I love Dedra. Dedra is one of my absolute favorite parts of the show.
Yeah.
I joke that Dedra Miro is hot. I was not ever that serious about it in season 1, except for the interrogation scene. But they made her hot in season 2.
Yeah.
And no, Dedra is this person who, I mean, either she ought to have gone out on Gorman, which I think it's interesting that she didn't. I think that was
Yeah.
a interesting and I think correct call to let her survive that. Or no matter what, she is a person who needs to be a victim of the system, just like the thousands of people whose lives that she has personally ruined.
Mhm.
There is no redemption from that. Nor, frankly, does there need to be.
Mhm.
I don't think Andor was ever a story about a person like that being redeemable, turning a new page and joining the Alliance. No, I think for someone like Dedra, that would be glib. I think the point is that she wasted herself working for this institutional ghoul that is the Empire. And
I was gonna use her and throw her out.
Yeah, because it does that for everybody as far up the chain as you go until you get to top dog himself. And even then, who knows if he's going to stay there if the people right under him want him gone. I know that
somehow Palpatine returned. I don't know.
Palpatine personally subscribes to a belief system that dictates that the underling should try to kill his boss. And I say his.
He actually, I mean, I respectfully disagree on that one because I think
he doesn't think he should be killed.
Exactly, Palpatine kind of breaks that rule of. I mean, all the masters, I guess, kind of don't want to acquiesce by that rule, but
to the rule too.
But neither here nor there. This is not a mystical show. This is a serious show.
I think it is worth saying. I don't want to belabor the point too much, but the reason the Empire is what it is because that is Palpatine's ideology. Palpatine is a fascist. As a guy, as a person, and as a Sith. So it is might makes right, and if somebody is mightier than me, they should be in the right, but also they're not. No one is mightier than me. There's a contradiction there, but not actually. Because the truth of it is that might is right. I am might. Put me in charge. I should be God. That's Palpatine's ideology. And that's what all of these motherfuckers feel, except for the difference is that Palpatine's actually on top. That's it. That's the only difference. He got lucky and powerful enough to get there. Everybody, they're all the same.
So some would say merit, I know there's a lot of thing about, how white men kind of, have an easier time in terms of like getting, positions of privilege. But I think old Palpy, I think he's the exception. I think he worked for it.
Yeah, he put in the hours.
He put that he did.
He
at
did
least in
work.
Mexico when he was trying to stay alive. Anyway,
the amount. Hey, no. I have to listen. You can work very hard and get disproportionate results. And the amount of power that Palpatine gets, even though he did work hard, he did do a lot. Palpatine did a lot to get where he got, is still wildly disproportionate. Because there are people who work that hard every single day and who don't get that. I'm not actually talking about Palpatine. Anyway, moving on.
I don't know what you're talking about. Nani, but how do you feel about not Palpatine's, how much he earned his role, but how Dedra earned her cell in Narkina 2? How do you feel about it? Is it a fitting end to this character for this Andor finale?
I mean, for somebody like Dedra, honestly, getting shot in the head like Cyril did would have been too easy of an out for her, honestly. I think it is fitting for her to just sit there with the other wherever she is, in which Narkina, with who, is incarcerated with her, because we don't know if she's like within other like political empire people that were incarcerated, or if she's with, with the general mass.
She's with the general population, baby.
Yeah. But I think just, and we see it, that she's usually so composed and she's just like crying into her hands when we see her. It's her sitting there having to think about how everything went wrong. And, we know that she is like super hyperly analytical about everything. So she's sitting there going over and over and over where she went wrong, what happened, what could I have done better? And it's going to fall on deaf ears. And I actually think it's a pretty fitting punishment.
Like I don't want to say I was sharing when it happened, but I might have released a Yelp at least, and not the review kind. When I saw her in that cell, but
and she's not getting Andy Serkis or Cassian to No Way Out her.
No, I mean maybe she doesn't know how to swim, so so if there's an escape, maybe she goes the way of Kino. But anyway, she does. That's neither here nor there at this point. Now we're done with Dedra. We're done with Partagaz because we'll talk a little bit about Partagaz because we have to talk about Nemec. But I really want to talk because we've been going a while, and I really would be remiss if we don't talk about the power of Clea, and not just Clea, but then those flashback scenes where we get to learn about Luthen and how Luthen was in many ways responsible for the death of Clea's family, and in that, and the creation of Clea by being an Imperial officer, and the return of Naboo, right, and seeing the destruction of that bridge with the Imperials as they enjoy their hard-earned sweets. But I could talk all day about how beautiful that episode 10 was and how it structured everything from like we talked about already, Luthen and Dedra's interactions, and how quippy and magnificent it was to Luthen trying to escape through unaliving himself with a dagger of questionable origin. And then Clea's resolve and deep commitment to the cause, to herself and to Luthen, right, in many ways, because she knows that that's what Luthen would have wanted to, for her to finish the job and kind of
the mission,
disconnect him from the machines. But so it's one of those things where the whole structure of it was so enthralling, right, because it's just you feel it. It's just this one woman army against the hospital and the Empire.
Well, I mean, they thought it was an entire team until they get into the video footage, and it's like, it's just her.
But then also tragic in many ways, because then the next episode, when Cassian comes to rescue her, she doesn't want to go. She just wants to give the message, and she just wants to stay in Coruscant and not see what she helped build, and then see that transition from someone who's in high class society in Coruscant, hiding from the Empire, but also the rebellion, to be rescued in a unwilling fashion to be in the jungles of Yavin, to finally see what she helped create. And we kind of see a smile. So she goes through this whole journey through these whole episodes of what her character has been since season 1 to kind of thankfully live. I saw lots of people that had Clea on their dead pool, so I was very, very happy to see her survive, thankfully. Like, I was gonna riot if they had taken her from us, but she
Yeah.
made it. So Ellie, how did you feel? Did you feel the deep satisfaction with Clea's journey that I felt, or do you have any spicy takes for us?
No, I mean I mostly did too. I think the biggest thing that I want from Clea that I didn't get, and I think I get why, is that I would have preferred if she had been having in the very ending montage. I wish she had been at breakfast with Mon and Belle.
Okay.
I think I
Yeah.
would have. I don't think there's anything wrong with like showing her waking up or whatever, and I kind of get why having her separate, but I would have liked sort of a she has been invited to be here, whether or not she
Yeah.
feels like she can or she feels comfortable or she likes
Yeah.
it, you know.
Mhm.
I think that would have rounded it a little better. But no, I think I the like flashbacky stuff with Luthen and Clea is so figurative. It's not placed in time or setting.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, I know Naboo when I see it, but like it is much more about who these people are and what their relationship is and how that started. And because of that, it's so much about Clea. It's not about Luthen. And I liked that. I think that told us as much about Luthen as if they had been like, this is who Luthen Rail is. He's from this or whatever.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways, this season especially, but also Andor in general, is sort of about one of the things that it's about is what it costs to live this sort of, I mean, insurgent lifestyle. What does it cost to live a political life? And the ultimate cost is that you are not a person anymore. You're a number. And sometimes that is beautiful. Sometimes you are giving yourself up to a larger, to something larger, to a movement, to a cause. Like that can be a wonderful thing. Cassian and Clea are this long ladder of people that changed everything for people living under the Empire, and that is wonderful. But that's also literally dehumanizing. It is desubjectifying and genuinely brutal, and everyone has to deal with the pain from that. Everyone has to deal with the trauma and the genuine harm, and no one should pretend like that isn't an issue. It weighs on Bix, it weighs on Cassian, and but the thing about it is like, as Clea says to Cassian in episode 9, Cassian wants to make choices, but they don't get to. They don't get to. The Empire, by being what it is, has taken their the right to agency that they should have away from them. And all they can do now is just figure out what to do with that. And is that horrible? Yes. But you have this interaction with a younger Luthen and a very young Clea before they are about to bomb a bridge.
Yeah.
And Luthen is essentially saying, I need to make sure that you are making a choice, that we are not going to see this place again. It is beautiful and you will be saying goodbye to it. I need that to be something you are electing to do because I have not made choices and I regret that. And Clea,
Well, and he
this
still protects
child,
her.
yes,
And
yes,
he still
yes.
protects her because I mean,
Because
even
he's a
after
bastard.
even after she makes the choice, it's like, nope, you're not doing it. It's me. Hit the button, you know? So it's just such a complicated relationship for me. And I thought it was so especially well done in that first episode when you see it from Clea's point of view as she's hiding in the ship and she can see Luthen struggling with everything that's going on around him as an officer. So it's very much Clea's story. And through Clea's story, then we find out Luthen's story and why Luthen was so important to her and why she was willing to go as far as she did, especially when everybody kind of started turning their back on Luthen and his ideology and everything else. So I thought it was very, I don't know, poignant Clay has been amazing from the beginning, but this specifically and how their relationship happens and how she and Cassian can find middle ground. Like as soon as she sees him when she opens the door, it's like,
Of course,
of course it was going to be you. Yeah.
Well,
And somebody.
Oh, I was just
Go,
gonna
Ellie.
say,
Mhm.
as silly and sweet as it is for Luthen to be like, okay, I'm not gonna make you press the button to blow up these guys.
Yeah.
Clea is resolute. Clea was going to do
Right.
it, and
So it's like
she
you kind of took my
would have
choice
been
from
right
me.
to.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is that Clea, as this child, as horrific as that is, Clea knows damn well that she does not have a choice. She does not have a choice. The choice, this life that they live is not an option. They either do this or they get crushed.
Yeah.
Do you want to get killed by them doing normal stuff, or do you want to die trying to take them down for real? Like Luthen says. And Clea knows that as a child. This is not an active choice that she makes because she doesn't have option, because none of them have options, because that is taken away from them. And Clea, as much or more than anyone, knows that. Clea knows that this is the life, and that is what it takes, and that is a horrible, horrible thing. And that is what you give up when you do this.
I'm making notes. Because I think I think it's interesting about how we're talking about choice in these characters, and there's another character that also made choices in her life, and it's very interesting. We're talking about her in the last arc, and seeing how she took herself out of the narrative, but then we see her again in this arc in what her choice ended up being. And it was very interesting because when I saw it, I knew that there would be thoughts about it in more ways than one. But it was very interesting to see the what's it called, the discourse, as it is, as it always has been in the Star Wars fandom, even on Blue Sky, which was surprising because Blue Sky is supposed to be this liberal, beautiful bubble where no one argues. Kind of see some of the reactions, for lack of a better word, towards the reveal of Bix and how it's chosen to end the series. And I mean, I'm a human being. I have my own thoughts, but on this particular topic, I think it's more important, like as I did last time, to kind of just shut up and listen and see what the different points of view are, because I think it's an experience that I don't get to have, and that I don't have the same relationship to. So I would prefer on this specific topic to see what y'all's reaction was to Bix and how it is. Was it negative? Was it positive? Was it neutral? Was what did you all think? Because my you don't fandom doesn't need another straight guy talking about pregnant women. So have at it. The floor is yours. I'm not gonna say who to start. Whoever wants to start, just go.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Goose. I really, really respect that level of, I think, self-awareness. I think that is wonderful and should be loudly commended, because I think that matters. I think certainly that means a lot to me, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your self-awareness. I also care about what you think, for the record, but
Thank you for making this about me. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that.
As soon as I saw Bix in that episode, I thought, what does Goose think?
Yes. That's all
I will go
fandom should. That's all fandom should.
I don't disagree with that. I will go second.
You will go second.
Mhm.
Okay. So, love Bix. Love Adria Arjona. I'm kind of sad that we didn't see her more in this arc. I kind of they did the mention when Cassian was having a conversation with Vel, you know, you should reach out to Bix. Is she okay? As far as I know, she's fine. I kind of wanted to see her, you know, having her own adventures on the side. But that was just my opinion from the previous arc. From when she decided that she was going to separate herself from Andor so that Andor can stop obsessing about her safety and just concentrate on what needs to be done. And then she can make her own decisions about what she wants to do, because she was very adamant that she wants the fight to continue, that for everything to be worth it, they have to win, and that she wants to be a part of it. Obviously, that changes now that we know that the reason that she left was because she was pregnant. Well, one of the reasons, probably. We don't know her entire mind, but it was her choice. It's all about empowerment for her, to me. She decided from the very beginning that, and especially after she went through the really rough patch that she did after, you know, all the torture at the beginning of the season, that she wanted to be a part of the fight and that she wanted to be involved in what was happening. And you can be a part of the fight in very many different ways. And just to see her after she just absolutely destroys Dr. Gorst, and finds, you know, the power back in herself, after she fights back the man that tries to rape her, after all these choices that she has, after she decides that she wants to be support for Cassian so that Cassian can accept the role that she believes is his, because I don't think Cassian himself really understood what his role was, really, and it's Bix's belief in him that strengthens her as well, because she believes in him without him having to convince her otherwise, you know. So I think there were a lot of very empowering moments for Bix, and if she decided to leave without even knowing if she was pregnant, just deciding to leave because she worries that Cassian is not going to continue the fight because he's going to be so overprotective. The fact that she admits that she doesn't have the strength to do it face to face with him because she loves him so much and she doesn't actually want to leave. You know, the fact that she goes to the last planet where she had a family, she goes get B2 emo. She goes to the last place where she was with Wilman and Cassian and Brasso, where they've built a home, and that she's felt, you know, safe going there while she waits for the fallout, because that's what she says. She's like, as soon as, you know, everything calms down, we will find each other. And when they were in that place, she always believed that Cassian was gonna find her, and Cassian does find her when everything goes wrong. So I think she always had the strong belief that Cassian was going to find her when everything was done, which just makes it so much sadder. But anybody saying that, I don't really follow social media, so I don't really know what the discourse is out there. I thought it was beautiful. It honestly just makes me sad because from the previous arc, when she's saying, you know, as soon as it's over, we're gonna find each other, and I'm just like, this whole time, like, no, it's not gonna happen. He's gonna die, you know, and it's just it's just so sad, and you know, you see this. It's a scene filled with hope to me. You know, she's just standing in this field. The baby's kind of being fussy, and she's just like looking out to space, you know, like everything's gonna be okay, everything's gonna be fine. And I think that was such a powerful scene. And I think Bix is a badass. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents. Ellie.
I really
Yeah,
I really enjoy
go,
Bix as a
go.
character.
Yeah.
I really like her. I think she is so well performed. I think there is a lot of good material for her, and I am so very glad. I feel like I have to preface this with the fact that I am so deeply, deeply relieved that they did not fridge her, that they did not kill her off for the sake of
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
People were so confident about that, and I thought that was really quite deeply horrible. to even assume. And
Yeah.
I'm so very glad for that. I'm glad that this show did not end with go watch Rogue One. It still kind of did, but it ended with and here is what's left. I love that.
Yeah. But I knew it.
And this is my opinion. I think that sidelining Bix in the second half of this season, I think that taking away, essentially removing her as a rebel operative without actually giving her interiority or perspective for that, having her entire like presence in the previous arc be how she is navigating Cassian's responsibility and nothing to do with her own. It is so Cassian can fight, so the cool guy main character can do the cool guy main character thing. She has to leave, and then to bring her back for the sake of saying, oh, it's okay, and also a little bit more tragic because she's a mother. I think sidelining Bix in the first place was questionable. And I don't think that motherhood as a role is reduction. But I do think that when someone stops being a character in a story, because they're a mother even, mothers are people, crazy thought. When you stop being a character in a story because of that, war happens to pregnant women. War has happened to most pregnant women throughout history, or famine, or sickness, or hardship. And so many of them have faced it with an amount of work that is not acknowledged or seen. Political consequences happen to women's bodies and always have. And Andor, especially Andor's final arc, does not reckon with that, is not interested in that, is only interested in saying Cassian Andor's legacy lives on because he impregnated a woman. I genuinely think, and maybe this is unfair of me, I think doing this to Bix's character is the worst thing that Star Wars has done to a female lead since at least Padme's sidelining and then death in Episode 3, where she stops being a character and then is pregnant and sad and then dead.
Yeah, that is the worst. That is just the treatment of Padme is just the absolute worst. Oh my god,
it's Padme or the gold bikini for me. And I think there are ways that they could have done this, and one of the chiefest ways is to actually spend time with it, actually let Bix be a character. What is Bix's relationship to this child? What is Bix's relationship to her own pregnancy? Yes, vis-a-vis Cassian, but also not.
Or like Hera with her kid and still being part of the rebellion. Like
Hera's a general.
Yes.
And I don't need Bix on the front lines. That's perfectly fine. But what does that look like? Did she? Yeah, she knew that she was pregnant, almost certainly. But did she know that and immediately leave? Or was she in it for a bit and then she left? Like, none of that is reckoned with. Bix is not a person with a life. Bix is a woman standing in a field with a baby at the end. This is not. This is what Bix has been doing. This is not where Bix is at. This is. There is a child, there is a mother. And that, I think, is if they wanted to tell that story, such a missed opportunity, because that could have been fascinating and beautiful and interesting, and they didn't want to. And I think if you don't earn that, then you don't.
It feels kind of empty. Yeah.
I don't think, because women are sidelined into their roles as only mother without complexity, mother without anything else, mother only for the sake of the important men in their life that they give everything up to support. You have to earn putting your character in that role. if you care about dismantling the sorts of systems that lead to Bix being treated the way she was on Mina Rao years ago. You have to be committed to that, and Andor is not. And I think that's a real bummer.
But I mean, it was also a choice. I mean, the fact that we didn't get to explore it and we didn't get to see like what her thought process was into making that choice takes away from it because we don't get to see. But a woman wanting to be a mother is also a choice. Like, you know, that is the point of feminism. You can choose to be the badass that is at the front lines. You can choose to be the badass that is behind the lines with your kid, you know, doing whatever it is they want. You can be the woman who never wants to have children. You can be the one that wants to be completely dedicated to have children. I mean, it's about the choice. And I think she made a choice as well. I think the problem is the fact that we didn't know where the choice was coming from. It was kind of framed that it was all in support of the dude. I think that was the problem. And that we don't get to see why she chose what she chose to do. But the fact that she's a woman in a field with a kid doesn't necessarily make it a anti-feminist thing.
Well, I think you have to get there. You have to give that
and
woman
that's what
in the
that's why I
field
agree
inferiority.
with you. Yeah, and how she got there and why she chose to be there. So I think the what's missing is not the actual scene. I think what's missing is the story of how that happened. And I also thought it was very because when she decided to leave and I thought it was a beautiful scene, you know, when she's kind of talking to him and kind of, you know, saying her reasoning behind it, but then we don't really get to see, and I think that's, you know, part of the problem with the show being structured as it was, that we only get a few days within a year. So we don't really get to see how these characters, you know, sense of self gets to where it is every time we see them again, you know, after she got ownership of herself, you know, after the destruction of Dr. Gorst, you know, and then she's like, again, living like a happy life in this, you know, settled Yavin. You know, we don't really see how the aftermath of her gaining her self-assurance came back, because we knew from when she was in a very dark place that she really wanted to be a part of the rebellion, that she wanted, you know, Luthen to bring her on, that she was really disappointed when Luthen saw that she was broken and kind of backed off, you know? So the fact that they kind of made her a homemaker again, you know, the problem is that I think the problem is that we don't get to see the origin of these people's decisions as much as we did in season one, because we have an entire season to get to kind of know these people and know where they're coming from. And I think the problem was that it was abrupt and yeah, and that we don't understand why necessarily, like what was going behind her head for her to choose to act this way. I mean, I really thought that this arc we were gonna see her in like side missions, like her on her own being part of the rebellion and doing something. So that disappoints me. But the end itself, not so much. It's the getting there that I think was the issue for me.
Right. I mean, the thing missing is
Yeah.
Bix, right?
Yeah.
Bix as a person, Bix as a character. I genuinely am compelled by like imagining what that must have been like for her.
Yeah.
But the fact that Andor wasn't interested in it, but was still interested in being like, oh, also this happened.
Okay.
I think is where it is always, where does this show choose to spend its time? Who does this show, what kinds of people does this show decide to spend time with? Because as much as there is reasoning behind, you know, Bix, the character, what ended up on the screen is always a choice. It is the choice of creatives to prioritize or deprioritize other things, whether or not they are deliberately doing things that I disagree with or not. It is always what is on screen, what isn't on screen. And the stuff that isn't on screen is often just
more
as
telling.
if not telling. Yeah. Especially for a show like Andor.
Yeah.
because Andor is very interested in showing, here is this person plugging in this radio for several seconds. And Andor was not interested in the like essential interiority of one of its leads this season for its entire finale. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, because I genuinely, if they had earned that, if they had like I remember when I heard before season 2 came out that Dedra and Cyril would be together, and I went, oh no, that's horrible.
Yeah.
And then the show earned it. I got to see it on screen and go, wow, that's horrible.
And that is
I love
like,
that.
I know. And it's like, it's horrifying, but I can't stop watching it. And they made it make sense. Yeah.
It's delightful.
Yeah,
it's so interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even if it's something that on paper I wouldn't like necessarily like, people were like, what if Bix was pregnant? And I was like, that's a terrible idea. If they had actually explored that, gangbusters, cool. Like, do the Andor thing, but for a woman. Like, awesome. Awesome. And it's just a real shame. It's a missed opportunity, and I do find it a little bit distressing.
Yeah, especially when they have made such a point, and especially with, Leia this season, that they are so invested sometimes in the emotional development of some of their characters. And I think they could have definitely put more effort into Bix, especially after they spend so much time kind of helping us to understand characters that are so horrifying, like Dedra and like Cyril. And then your main female lead, almost like up there with Mon Mothma and Marva. Oh, Marva. Marva was so good. I think it was a missed opportunity, and I think that's why I agree with you, Ellie, that the show could have benefited from anything from maybe another arc, maybe a whole other season, like separated a little bit more, so you can get a little bit more payoff when you get to the end, and to see these characters at the end and earn it with all of them, because I feel like you earn it with some of them, you don't necessarily earn it with all of them.
Definitely. And it's a shame. I think gone too soon is my takeaway from Andor. And I was always going to be like, oh no, there's no more Andor. I was always going to feel that way because I like this show, but I genuinely think the show is like demonstrably weaker for it, which is sad.
Oh, I feel sadder.
What about you, Goose? Do you like the baby?
I think I think I'm treading in the danger zone, right? In opining in such things.
It's fine. You can make me mad.
Babies are fine. I have nephews. They were cute when they were babies. Luke Skywalker was a baby at one point, so was Cassian. Baby, I assume Bix was also a baby at one point. So I don't have a problem with the concept of babies. I think I was one at one point also. So thanks, Mom and Dad, for that one. So I'm not inherently opposed to the concept of babies. We need to have them, I guess, for humanity to continue. I think it's a kind of a touchy subject nowadays because of disgusting people like JD Vance and Elon Musk and their weird repopulation narratives of how society needs to procreate. It's kind of gross. So I also understand like the revulsion that progressive and liberal circles might have against the empowerment of procreating. I get that side of the narrative, but one of the things that I thought was so brilliant about this season was kind of showing that normalcy of life during revolution and during fascism. And it's just like, like you don't stop falling in love. I mean, look at Willman. That boy got around, and he was busy huffing Rido. He was busy doing stuff for Luthen and Saw and Mons. And it's just like, I thought that was like the great aspect of the show was framing that sense of normalcy, even with Dedra and Cyril, right?
Absolutely.
Like, there's no, and we're living it, right? We're like in this The country's
Yeah.
teetering, not teetering, it's taking a hard left, hard right towards fascism, and we're here, right? Like podcasting and on Zoom, and we have our partners, and we're doing our things, taking
Right,
exams for
Cassian
our
waters
profession.
his plants before Kafrine.
Because he thinks he's gonna
That is
come back, which is
Yeah.
heartbreaking. So
But you take care of your life
yeah,
because you have to maintain your life in order to be politically involved.
yeah. So for me, like that was a good coda of it. It's just like, yeah, like it life to quote the great Dr. Ian Malcolm, life finds a way, so in that regard, like I don't mind the baby, I think it frames the theme of the show. It's just like, yeah, everyone stabs themselves in the heart. We almost didn't survive leaving Coruscant. We're gonna get blown up by a Death Star, but we're not doing it for us. We're doing it for what's left, for what we're trying to leave behind. So so in many ways, it kind of helps just kind of frame it. It's not just about going into Rogue One and exploding. It's about like what
the next
we're fighting.
generation.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, the next generation, but like what we're fighting for, what we're fighting for, a better life for those that we love, right? So I think that worked. I think that my issue with it was, and you both said it beautifully, right? It was more so the framing of it, in which,
Yeah.
and I knew it, right, the minute that Bix was saying her monologue that in the last arc about why she's leaving. As I'm listening to him, it's like, oh, this is losing the plot a little bit, because it wasn't. Yeah, she is having the active choice, and she is choosing to leave, but the whole thing is still framed about Cassian's destiny. It's like, maybe if you just have framed it a little different about like you, like it's like, hey, you gotta do you, but I gotta do me too, and
I
like
have my own destiny.
like we have our own rebellions to fight, and
Yeah.
I'm fighting mine my way.
Yeah.
You need to fight yours your way, which
Yeah.
it's a thing that Marvel already said in season 1. She's like, I can't go and you can't stay, which they repeat in
Yeah.
this season when Bale and Mon are talking. It's just like the I can't go and you can't stay thing. I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I feel the whole big situation should have been
Cassian thing should have
framed.
worked out. Yeah.
It's just about her choosing to fight her rebellion, and and maybe she isn't Minara, but we see her do some rebel shit. I don't know. She has a radio or something, or she comes out of a bunker. I don't know. But there's kind of little things or breadcrumbs that you can leave along the way to show that aspect of her
Yeah.
still being a rebel, right? Which I think was important for this season,
Yeah.
because the whole season is her building up to trying to escape all these men telling her that she can't rebel because
Yeah.
she's hooked on phonics with drugs, or she's sad
Yeah.
about Dr. Gorst, or all these things, all these men telling her she can't rebel, and then at the end she's like, well, but now I have a baby. So I feel like it could have been good to just see her rebel on her terms, even if baby or not, but rebel on her terms without Cassian and without Luthen. But but I don't want to get controversial. I don't want to get controversial. I'm going to defer to people that have better opinions on it than I, because I'm not sure that, again, I'm here to learn a little bit more about it. But it's not just Bix's point of view that we're seeing. We just see all these other women in the show, right, that are having their own rebellions against their own institutions in their own ways. Like Cinta, gone too soon,
Yeah.
is gone because of the hubris of a man that didn't want to
Yeah.
listen to another woman telling him what to do. And like,
Yep.
unfortunately, like women nowadays, she had to pay the price for a dumb man not listening to a smart woman. So we see like all these intersectionalities that I think
Yeah.
are, to the credit of the writers, right? I think well intentioned in how all these characters are built, but I do think that, yeah, there was a huge miss in Bix's goodbye, because it was framed to serve Cassian and not to serve
Yeah. Her.
herself. Yeah, but that's just my humble opinion. I mute myself again. I yield my time,
Well, and
Senator.
I mean,
Senator, I yield my time.
if when it comes to the intersectionality of the piece, it is worth acknowledging. I think there's some really, really well written women in this show. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, I'm so glad that this final arc took this time to be with Clea, to tell us who Clea is, like on the inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. Additionally, who are the women that got interiority in Andor? The most of it? The white women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not Cinta. We get Vel. We get so much less Cinta. Bix leaves. Nia is not a character. Senator Pamlo is not a character. Like, it's just a real shame, I guess. Some real missed opportunities there.
Are you saying that Andor isn't perfect?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't say no.
Are you saying
I would
Tony?
never.
Are you saying that Tony?
I would never.
Fix?
Tony Gilroy. No. Christ himself? No, absolutely not. No.
Okay, that's what I thought.
No,
That's what
no,
I thought.
no.
Be careful. Be careful.
No, Tony Gilroy could do nothing incorrect. Ever. And you know what would be even less? Like, if, a guy like Tony, like, who is so perfect, I think if he wants to be even more perfect, he could consider hiring women. Okay, anyway.
Well, Sana Wallenberg's there. He has the one. He has the one.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, he probably didn't put her there. Anyway.
Anywho,
my soapbox. Not important.
Well, that's why we brought you. We brought you so you can be on 2 soapboxes. I don't know if that's good or bad. If it's bad,
probably
then
bad.
1 soapbox. Okay, then 1 soapbox. But we want to eventually do a full retrospective on Andor season 2 and kind of take the season as a whole. But before we do that, let's have some final thoughts on this last season of Andor. I know that there's been different takes, spicy or not, filled with Rito, maybe not, maybe yes. But on the whole, do you think this was a worthy follow-up to season 1? And do you think that this final arc, was, despite its flaws, do you think that was a good conclusion to the series?
You go first this time, Ellie.
I think this is probably a good conclusion. I think one of the really good things about it is that it is very interested in ending the show. It wants to kind of bring things full circle in some ways, and I think there are probably things that it could have done to make it more so. I don't think that this is a bad arc by any means. I think it is good. I think it is fun. I think when I'm when I can set this aside for a couple of months and then come back to it, I think I will feel like an amount of catharsis that I really quite love. Do I think that this season landed for me as much as season 1? No, not at all. But that's because they made season 1 to have 4 more seasons after it. They wrote this chunk of this story and then compressed 4 seasons into 1. Like, it wasn't that exactly what happened, but like pretty much. And so, in retrospect, I don't think it ever was going to. Whoops, that's fine. I can live with it.
Yeah. Nani, how about you?
I need more time to sit with it, honestly. I feel like it went by so fast, and I think it's why I think we've been struggling also to get these episodes of us talking about it out, because it's so hard, honestly, to talk about 3 episodes as one arc, like one after the other. Especially when they're so emotionally driven and you don't really know how it makes you feel completely. I feel like sometimes some things I say, and then I like rewatch the episode, like, wait, no, that's not necessarily how it made me feel now. So I think it's really hard to judge right now. But when I first saw these 3 episodes, I really enjoyed them in the sense that I felt like, because we knew at this point where it was going. And I was more curious about how they were going to get there, I guess. And I was really excited. Like some of the scenes were so well shot, like the tension, everything that's happening when they're trying to get Clea and getting K2 Erso involved, and everything as it's happening, and the back and forth of, like you were saying before, Ellie, if Jedha was actually on the team trying to get Clea, it would have been so much more efficient than the crapshoot that happened. I was like, oh, why is there only one team assigned to what's happening right now? So, in terms of enjoyment as a show, the tension that was building, the way that everything was kind of coming together, I thought was really well done. So
Mhm.
as a whole, I actually really enjoyed it. I still think I have to watch it the whole way through. I kind of want to watch it with Hosbando to have him
Mhm.
kind of react to it from a
Yeah.
different perspective, because it's not, Star Wars is not fun to watch by yourself, And
No.
to like sit with it and then sit and watch Rogue One again, which I haven't watched in years. All in all, I'm just really glad that we got this show at all,
Yeah.
honestly. To get these characters who are not force sensitive. It's not about being able to have a lightsaber, and
Mhm.
it's real people's lives and how they're affected, by the Empire,
Mhm.
and to get more of a perspective of the people who work within the Empire, who believe they are a force for good, because they actually do believe that the Empire is a force for good, even if they're monsters and disgusting. But it's very interesting to see both sides of it, and I think this show did a really good job of juxtaposing one side to the other and how they're kind of counter reacting to everything that's going on. So I enjoyed it. I need to sit with it and have another review later on. But all in all, I really think they should have lengthened it out a little bit more,
Mhm.
and given us some more time to digest, given us a little bit more development towards the end, so we can really understand some of those last choices that were made for some of the characters. But all in all, I really did actually enjoy it. So
I like how
So
that
so
was
did
kind
so,
of they forced you to
so did
say
I,
it
for the
almost.
record.
It felt like there was
I did
like someone
also
with a
like
gun
the show.
behind the camera, like, say you enjoyed it. It's like, I swear, Lucasfilm not paying us for this. Yeah,
yeah.
no, yeah. It's interesting because I kind of knew going into it that I wasn't gonna like it as much as season one, but that's because I know that I'm a sucker for origin stories. There's very few follow ups that I'm just like, yeah. There's very few Last Jedi's and Empire Strikes Backs out there that I'm just like, yeah, this is better than the first. Like the beginning of
Yeah.
a journey always is something that I'm particularly drawn to. So the heights of season one are so high that I kind of knew that season two, as good as it might have been, was probably not going to reach that. So, that being said, I do think that season two nailed it. I think for the most part, I was worried about the narrative structure of the arc thing, and I think that for the
Hmm.
most part, unfortunately, as much as I would have wanted more, for the most part, I think it worked. So I think
Yeah.
it really did it. I was kind of worried on the first arc that I wasn't gonna vibe with this series because it is very tonally different from season
Yeah.
one. It's a completely different show. It's framed
Hmm.
differently. It feels different. I mean, the DNA is still there, but it's definitely a completely
Yeah.
different beast from what season one was. So that was a little jarring at first, because you're coming back for more, and then you're getting something that's different from
Different.
for what you came for. But different's not always bad. Sometimes different is good. It's variety is important. Some would say. Uh, so I for the most part enjoyed it. Some people are calling it a masterpiece. Is it a masterpiece? I'm not sure, but is it very good? Most definitely. Is it
It's good. Hmm.
impactful and important show to have? Absolutely. Is it a miracle that a corporation like Disney did it? I think that's incredible. Do I want Disney / Lucasfilm to make another Andor? Absolutely not, because when you try to replicate the thing, it's no longer the thing. It just becomes a diluted parody of itself. So
Yeah.
I just want more honest storytelling and creators that are coming in with a strong vision, and for the companies to trust those visions and create some things that are honest. So more Andor? No, Andor's done. Unfortunately, we closed that book, but now I just want more honest, genuine storytelling, and we'll see what we get. But for now, I'm still reeling from the bittersweetness that it is to kind of just have Andor be now in the past tense, which is very sad. I was very sad about this week. But we'll revisit it. We have to do a rewatch. We have to see how it sits with us after seeing it without the expectation. I think it's also unfair. It's also unfair for a show that is coming off the heels of such a impressive first season to find its footing with the expectations of a fandom with it. And I think that it was a very unthankful task in many ways. So I think there's going to be a lot of value in rewatching the season, because you can shake off all those expectations and just see it for what it is and not what we were hoping it would be. But Andor's beautiful. Andor's great. For Triad of the Force, Andor was a very important show in like our podcasting journey. So in many ways it feels like we're closing a book on a very important chapter, and that's always a little sad, but there are more books to open, and hopefully the next one is just as exciting. But anyway, before I get too emotional here, Ellie, thank you so much for joining us. As always, as I expected, wonderful conversation, so in depth. I wish we could be talking for 10 hours, but then no one's gonna listen to us. But before we wrap up, why don't you tell us a little bit about Daughters of Ferrix, what you're up to over there, what you're up to personally, where people can find you, even though I know where you are, but tell everybody. Tell everybody what's up.
Yeah, I'm in Portland, Oregon. I'm at let's see, 532.
No, not that, not that.
No, I make a show called Daughters of Ferrix. It is we talk about Star Wars specifically through a political, historical, and queer lens. What that looks like kind of differs day to day. It might be talking about rural identity in A New Hope. It might be discussing the limits of Star Wars as a political medium. It might be talking about Mon Mothma's wardrobe. What kind of whatever I want on the day, and it's heavily scripted, very written. We've been doing weekly Andor things. I'm not a reaction person. I'm not a commentary person. I'm a person who writes scripts and then reads them. I'm a research and synthesis person. So
love the discipline. I wish I had.
I'm very excited to get back to that, because that is what I'm actually built for. I am so exhausted emotionally from having to have opinions about television.
Sorry to contribute to that. Oh my god.
Yeah, sorry to take you out of your comfort zone.
I didn't have to drive the ship on this. I'm happy to come on shows and talk about stuff because I can just talk about my feelings about the thing. No, I make Daughters of Ferrix. You can find me at Ferrix Pod, FERRIXPOD, on most places. You can listen to my show on podcast websites. We have a video version on YouTube. Both are, I think, equally reasonable ways of listening. Next thing I'm going to be doing after the Andor stuff is actually editing and uploading the panel that I did with Chris Kempshall at Star Wars Celebration, talking about
Dr. Chris Kempshall.
Dr. Chris Kempshall. Sorry, Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire. Behind my head is the only book of his that has Doctor in it. They just stuck that on there. I mean, he is. Let's be clear, he is qualified, but they just stuck it on there to make it seem more like he's a historian.
Professional.
No shade to Chris. I love Chris. I owe Chris a lot.
He
No,
canonized
did,
you. You're in
did
Star Wars
canonize me.
canon. Yeah.
I am now a Catholic saint. I that is about sort of what history is via Star Wars and specifically Chris's writing. I'm really proud of that. So if you check out my show, hang around long enough to see that, because that is actually, don't go watch the Andor stuff. Don't go look at what I think about Andor. It's just me complaining for like
No,
8
we
hours.
love complaining.
Hang around for the stuff that I actually wrote and practiced. All right. Oh, I'm at the Letter Bomber. You can find me wherever. Ugh.
You'll be able to
That's me.
find Ellie and Daughters of Ferrix, because as always we'll put links down in the description below to help you find that amazing content, because it's great, and we have to support all creators that are coming in with diverse and poignant points of view. So please, if you haven't, make sure to go over there, subscribe, and listen, because we need it's Ellie's voice is a very important and powerful voice in our fandom, and we need to spread it. We need more people to listen, because it's a wonderful gospel. Now that we have an American Pope, we need to be preaching. We need to be preaching everywhere. So yeah, thank you, Ellie. And I think with that, we're ready to sign us off.
Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you so much, Ellie, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This was very, very fun. I feel like I haven't properly talked to people about this show since it started or restarted. So
well,
I'm very
glad that you got to share all your points of views with us. So now we want all of you out there to let us know what you think about Andor season 2, Andor season 1. If you're looking forward to watching Rogue One again, how did you feel about the way that it was paced? If they did dirty to some of our favorite characters, just let us know. But until next time, we are Triad of the Force. May the Force be with you.